Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for The Americans Season 2, Episode 6. This episode was called Behind the Red Door, and this, again, was another fantastic episode. Probably my favorite episode of the season, just because of where all the plots ended in this episode. However, I will say, this is one of the hardest episodes to watch of The Americans. There are a lot of scenes in this episode that are very hard to watch, and I'm definitely going to talk about that. And basically that's due in part to the sex scenes in this episode, and we're going to get to that, but definitely this was a fantastic episode. I really love where all the stories are going, and especially the way everything's ending up. I kind of have a feeling there's a major death coming at the end of the season, or before the end of the season. I kind of feel like I know who's going to die. So, the episode, you know, of course our main plot's Philip and Elizabeth. And, basically, it opens with Philip and Elizabeth. They're meeting with Claudia, and you can clearly see Claudia is upset about their new handler, you know, Kate. She's really upset about her. She feels like she's being replaced. She doesn't see a part. She doesn't really see her place anymore, and she's really jealous of her. And, you know, you gotta feel bad for Claudia, because this girl just came in and said, Claudia's out, I'm in, Claudia's out, and, Claudia didn't get a say over that. So, you know, Claudia's, basically, they're filling her in on the meeting they scheduled with Reston, and Claudia warns them that if he killed, Emmett and Leann, he is not like anyone they have ever dealt with before. So, definitely, you know, that's a big thing. Yeah, so basically, Philip and Elizabeth go undercover as CIA security and meet with Captain Larrick. You know, basically, again, Elizabeth got that file last week from the guy, so this is the guy they think that killed, you know, Emmett and Leann. And they go undercover as CIA and meet with Captain Larrick, and they accuse him of working with the KGB for the last 4 years. And, you can clearly see that, you know, they're really mad at him and everything. They're really, really mad. Not mad at him, but they definitely are doing the best they can to not, reveal themselves to him or anything like that. That was definitely just, a very intense scene. One of the most intense, as I said, a very intense scene, in the episode. As I said, this was a very intense episode. But basically, they accuse him of working for the KGB for the last 4 years and ask him why he betrayed his country and Navy SEALs. And they ask the captain why he killed his handlers and Emmett and Leann. And, you know, they ask him why he killed his handlers, Emmett and Leann. And captain says they didn't kill them, and someone got to the bastards before he did. So, we basically find out he's not the one that killed them. You know, either he's not telling them or he just didn't do it. So, Elizabeth and Philip tell Larig to maintain his relationship and report back to them. They leave the meeting, and Claudia picks them up in a white van, and they report to Claudia that he didn't kill Emmett and Leann, and they don't think, but they don't think that is, you know, they don't think that this guy killed them. They're like, he did not kill them. They think they have something wrong here, but they aren't gonna take him out because he knows something bigger. He's involved in an operation called Marital Eagle, and definitely, you know, they want to, you know, that's definitely a pretty big thing there. So yeah, so after this, Philip and Elizabeth, we get to our very first, a very intense sex scene in the episode. There are at least 4 sex scenes in this episode, and they're all, the first one is between Philip and Elizabeth, very lovingly between them, but pretty graphic as well. You know, they're having sex and everything, and, you know, that's happening. So they have sex, and the next day Philip meets up with their new handler at a bar, and he fills her in on Andrew Larig, and lets her know that they are looking in on him. He hands over the file about Marital Eagle, and explains that he was involved in the operation in Nicaragua, and it may be a danger to their motherland. So at home, Elizabeth is still questioning Philip about his fake wife, Martha. You know, they're lying in bed together. She's naked. He has clothes on, but she's completely naked. And they just had sex, as I said. And she thinks it's a funny thing that Martha actually said Philip is a wild animal. And then Elizabeth wants to know what kind of wild animal he is. And again, you know, you can see Elizabeth is very jealous of Martha. And she wants Philip to try, she wants to try it with Clark. And definitely, you know, that was crazy there when, you know, I was like, what are you thinking? What do you think is going to happen here? I knew something bad was going to happen, and, so yeah, she wants to try with Clark, and she wanted that kind of sex with him, basically. That's what she wanted. So, Philip, that was kind of a side plot, but Philip and Elizabeth meet with their handler, and she tells them what she has learned about Marshal Eagle, and turns out Marshal Eagle is a center on U.S. soil where Nicaraguans are being trained, and they want Philip and Elizabeth to expose the training centers. The American people have a right to know that they exist inside their country. So then, what happens is Philip arrives at home, you know, dressed as Clark. He's dressed as Clark, and, you know, basically, yeah, so he arrives home, he's dressed as Clark, and Elizabeth tries to have sex with him. He's dressed as Clark, and he takes off, you know, she tells him he's about to take off his glasses, and she's like, leave the glasses on, because, as she said, she wants to do it with Clark. She doesn't want it as, Philip, because she just wants more intense sex. Maybe she's getting bored of it, we don't really know. But, when this ends up happening, though, you know, it's not very, she says he isn't being rough enough, and I'm just like, do you want to get hurt or something? He tries again, and then Elizabeth starts crying. And I'm thinking, Elizabeth, you were the one who decided to do this. And by the way, this is probably the most graphic, intense sex scene we've had on this show. You know, literally, it was really, really an intense, very uncomfortable scene to watch. That is why I said it was such an uncomfortable episode, was because of this particular scene. I mean, she wanted him to do it, but he was basically, you know, not raping her, but he was just really intensely having sex with her. And definitely the most graphic sex scene we've had on the show by far. I think this is probably the most graphic sex scene we've had on the show since Season 1. I mean, Season 2 has not been that graphic with sex scenes, but this one really was very, very graphic. And, did I like it? Yes, because I understood why they were doing it. I understood that, you know, Elizabeth is getting jealous, and she's kind of jealous of Martha, and she wants Philip to be, you know, as much as, basically, she wants Clark to basically become second nature of Philip. And, when Philip finds out he hurt Elizabeth, he runs to the bathroom, and feeling guilty that he hurt her, he begins ripping his disguise off in the mirror. And, you can clearly see that, you know, he's really upset that he just did this to her. And then the very, end of this episode, basically, we see that, that Elizabeth and Claudia went in the car while, you know, basically, you know, but before this had happened, Elizabeth had met up with a new recruit named, Lucia. Now, as I said, that was basically our main plot of the episode, was Philip and Elizabeth trying to spice up their relationship and have bigger, more intense sex. But the other plot had to do with Elizabeth meeting up, with Lucia, who, if you don't remember, in episode 2, she met that one, girl who was a KGB officer, and she said she was going to protect her. So now, she actually needs Lucia's help. You know, she needs to get into the congressman, and, you know, she needs to get into the congressman that Lucia is seducing, private officer. Lucia says she understands and will help her, and later that night, Lucia and her boyfriend Carl are getting high in the office. And, you know, when I found out this guy was doing drugs, I'm like, this is not gonna end well. I knew something, you know, bad was gonna happen. But Lucia leaves the door unlocked and distracts him by having sex with him on the desk. Another really intense sex scene right here. Elizabeth hides in the shadows and listens to them, waiting for them to leave so that she can finish snooping around. And once they leave, Elizabeth takes photos of files pertaining to the training camps. She heads home, and Philip develops this picture to see what information she got. Larig is part of the training team, but even he won't be told the location until the day he leaves for camp. So they pretty much suspect that this guy is the guy that killed Emmett and Leann. And so Lucia's with Carl, the congressman's aide, and earlier that day, Elizabeth met up with her and told her that she had to tie up loose ends, because soon they're going to trace her back to the information leak, since Elizabeth used her to break into the office. You know, that's all Elizabeth wanted to do, was just break into the office. So while Carl isn't looking, Lucia sprinkles a powder into his heroin, and as soon as she did that, I knew it was not going to end well. You know, when he was injecting that into his arm, like, oh shit, this is going to get intense. And he ends up, she killed him. She killed him, and her loose end is finally tied up. That's what she had to do. She had to kill him, and it was pretty big that's what ended up having to happen. But then Elizabeth heads to the kitchen where Philip is washing dishes, and she basically tells him that Lucia's job is done. You know, she killed that guy for them, and they don't have to. So, yeah, so that was definitely very interesting. And then the very, end of the episode, we get a very big scene between Elizabeth and Claudia. Elizabeth and Claudia are waiting in the car while Phillip goes after Larig. He pulls the gun on him, and Larig says he knew the whole time he wasn't CIA. And meanwhile, Claudia says she was wrong about Phillip and reassures Elizabeth she's lucky to have him. She tells Elizabeth goodbye, and Elizabeth climbs out of her car. So I'm pretty much thinking that Claudia, I'm thinking Claudia is actually going to get killed off because Claudia doesn't really serve that much of a purpose on the show anymore. And Margot Martindale's actually, is on the Millers, so I don't really think that she's going to be on the show much longer. And if she is, I have a feeling she's going to get killed off, because they kind of made it seem like that in this episode. But yeah, so that was the main plot with Phillip and Elizabeth. Again, very, very strong, as usual. I'm pretty much thinking that this Larig guy killed, this Larig guy killed, he killed, basically the big reveal is that Larig guy, told him that he knew the whole time he wasn't CIA, and I just thought that was a huge thing, and I just thought, I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's gonna go. It definitely was huge, and I think it was also big with this Lucia girl, because now they might have been wrong about this guy, and Larig could very possibly be the guy who killed Emmett and Leann, because he pulled a gun on Phillip. Phillip pulled a gun on him, and then he said what he said, so maybe he did kill Emmett and Leann, he just lied to them. I think he did, because if he knew, then he probably lied to them. So that was definitely very interesting. I really love where, where that plot went. Let's get to Stan and Nina and Oleg, because that got really intense in this episode as well. Stan is secretly meeting with Oleg, and Oleg has threatened to harm Nina unless Stan hands over all of the FBI files they have on Oleg from when he was under surveillance. And he tells Stan he has 3 days to turn them over, and Stan sits down to have dinner with his wife and son, and his wife wants to know what he thinks of the paint job on their front door. And she painted it Tomato Tango, and his son points out that red means good luck in China. So, basically, Stan meets up with Nina, fills her in on the Oleg blackmail, and Nina is very upset at this point. She says, I knew I would wind up dead, and Stan asks her that as a borough policy, he needs her to take a polygraph test to prove to his boss that they can trust her, and she's worth saving, and Nina begins crying and says that Stan doesn't trust her, and declares she's done with him, and him, and storms out. So, again, we have this whole thing of her basically being tired of being a KGB agent, We've seen it with Elizabeth, we've seen it with Phillip, now we've seen it with Nina, and I kind of really like that storyline this season, that we're seeing that everyone's really getting tired of doing this. They're getting tired of having to be KGB agents, and, Nina's no exception. She just yelled at Stan. She's really upset with Stan. She's done with Stan. She doesn't want anything else to do with him. So what's going to happen between Stan and Nina? I'm really not sure. But that was basically their plot. And then really quickly with Paige, not much was going on there. Paige quit the volleyball team, we found out, and she only did it so she could hang out with the church youth group. And she explains that all they do is talk and have snacks, and she invites Elizabeth to come. So maybe Elizabeth might be coming to the church group with Paige in the next episode. And I have a feeling that it's not going to end well, because Elizabeth, as we know, is completely opposed of it completely, and that was definitely very, very interesting there. And that was the episode, and it was absolutely amazing. I absolutely love this episode, but again, very, very hard to watch certain scenes, especially the 2 sex scenes, mainly the one with Lucia and Carl. That one scene was very hard to watch, very loud scene, just really, really intense, and especially the scene with Clark and Elizabeth. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but a lot of people have said, and I agree after this episode, that now all of them are basically on the verge of either being found out or dead. I have a feeling Claudia is going to die this season. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. They would not bring in this new, they would not bring in this new girl for nothing. They would not just do that for nothing. Claudia's jealous of her. I have a feeling, I kind of thought Claudia was actually going to commit suicide or something. I didn't really know, because she seemed really, really upset about this. However, now I'm kind of thinking that Claudia is in risk of dying. I have a feeling a major character is going to die this season. And if not Claudia, I'm thinking maybe Nina, maybe Oleg. Definitely this episode puts all the characters at risk. All the characters at risk of being found out and dying. you know, now we know that this guy knows that Philip and Elizabeth are not CIA agents. The question is, does he know they are KGB agents? We're not really sure. What do you think of Lucia's plot? Where's she gonna go? What do you think her storyline's gonna be like? You know, what's gonna happen there? I'm definitely interested in seeing what's gonna happen with this new Lucia. I think she's a very interesting character. Now she's done what she's done. She could have just innocently killed someone who didn't do anything wrong, who did have a drug problem. You know, we know he had a drug problem. You know, what's gonna happen with Elizabeth and Phillip? Do you think this, you know, Martha, we didn't see any of Martha in this episode, but is Martha gonna, you know, Elizabeth is clearly jealous of Martha, so what's gonna happen there? I'm not really sure. It seems like, you know, it was definitely interesting between them in that episode. And also, what's gonna happen with Elizabeth going to this, going to the church group with Paige? How is that all going to work out? I have a feeling it's not going to end up going well for them. And that's not going to end up going well for, you know, Elizabeth and Philip either. It's not really going to end up well for them. But as I said, I absolutely love this episode. Best episode of the season, in my opinion. Just really, really, really strong episode. I felt it was just, I really liked last week's episode, but this episode felt like a completely different episode, and I really like that. And just, again, as I said, the Americans can do no wrong this season. And it's constantly intense. It's constantly, you never know what's going to happen. I didn't know there were going to be 3 sex scenes in this episode that were all really, really graphic, and 2 of them were really, really intense. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I appreciate it because I like that this show is willing to take risks. There aren't many shows out there that are willing to take risks, and this is one of those shows that's willing to take a lot of risks, and I love that about this show. You know, it's not afraid to show some really graphic sex scenes. It's not afraid to show a lot of violence. It's not afraid to do that, and that's one of the reasons why I love this show so much, and you know, I hope you guys like it that much too. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, perfect episode, best episode of the season. And I will see you guys in my next video, which probably won't be till Sunday. So see you then. Bye.